Hey guys, I'm Props, and today I'm going to show you how I made my Uruk Hai General Helmet from the Lord of the Rings trilogy. So I'm going to be making this whole helmet out of 3mm EVA foam, and I just have these little 11x8 sheets that I bought off of Walmart. I made some templates for these, or kind of a template. I took the template from one of my 3D printed helmets and just kind of used that as a rough base for everything that I did on this. I traced these templates onto those sheets. I did have to trim a few of them just to make them fit, and then I went through and cut them out with some scissors. I haven't made a PDF or whatever of the template that I used for this, but I might eventually upload it. I don't know, it's in a lot of different pieces. This was kind of an experiment of a template from William Shakespeare. I saw one of his helmet templates and I was wondering if I could make something in that style, so that's why this helmet is kind of coming together a little bit differently than my normal ones do. A quick thing when you're using templates is when you trace them onto a part, make sure to cut inside the lines, because when I made the left or right or whatever side, the second side of the helmet, I made most of the patterns and cut them outside of the lines, and I ended up having to recut it out just because it was just a fraction of a bit bigger than the right side and it didn't align right. So yeah, learn from my mistakes and make sure to follow the pattern. So if you're going to cut outside the lines, do it on all of the helmet. That way it's all increased proportionally rather than having one side larger than the other. When I started gluing the two halves together, as you can see, not everything lined up, so I tried my best to make sure that everything lined up right, and it did for the most part. Some parts ended up a little lumpy because I didn't line them up right, but yeah, if you want to make sure that they line up right, use registration marks, because I did not. Another thing is use packing tape or some type of tape to hold the helmet together, and then you can glue the seam along the inside of it. That's a little trick that I found out on this, because this is such a large area to glue. If you put tape down first, it just helped it go a little faster. Because this is made of 3mm foam, it's pretty floppy, so I got some coat hanger wire and just glued that into it. That way I can kind of adjust the shape of this mask to fit and to not be lopsided, because it kind of tries to sway that way. You could heat form the helmet to fit the shape, but it doesn't really work with thinner foam like this. So as you can see, I cut out the eyes, just cutting them out with my X-Acto knives and scissors, as well as the mouth area and then the ears, and I just eyeballed all of these based off of the location of the helmet on my actual head. so it's not going to be like location accurate to the movie prop. But as with almost all of my props, I'm not going for super large accuracy with it. I made that head crest part by just layering some pieces of the foam sheet together and then gluing it and cutting out that crest part. And I split it up in half because I didn't have a sheet that was large enough to fit the whole thing on. So I am going to have to end up filling up that seam line that it makes. I went through and cut the curvature of the helmet into the back of this so that it sits flush. And that way I didn't have to end up going and filling it in with some spackle or some flexible filler. I am using DAP Spackling or whatever to fill all the seams. This stuff is unfortunately not sandable, so you have to be really careful in the application of it just so that you don't have like a bunch of pieces sticking up. Luckily for me, I'm giving this helmet a rather corroded and textured look, so I'm just going to stipple everything with a little bit of this. And so I don't have to be super careful in my application because this is going to have a texture all over it, so any minor imperfection isn't going to be super noticeable. You may notice on my final product, I still have pretty obvious seam lines, and that's because I should have filled each seam individually and let it dry, but because I kept on messing with the helmet while putting in the spackling, it would crack where the seam was, and I never ended up going back through and filling those, so it kind of left the seam lines still there. Once that spackling was all dry, I went through and applied a layer of a Mod Podge black mixture over the whole helmet to seal it all up. As you can see, I did add a whole lot of texture just by stippling on that spackling with a sponge, and then I, as I said earlier, coated it in the black Mod Podge mixture. And this is about a 50-50 mixture, which I feel is about the right consistency, and it doesn't leave as many brush strokes as like straight Mod Podge. So yeah, if you want to give it a little bit more texture, you can always stipple it on, but I'm more or less just dry brushing it. I'm not doing super heavy coats, I'm just dry brushing this mixture over the whole thing, and that kind of prevents thick brush strokes from building up. After that, I went through and dabbed on some silver paint over most of the helmet just to give it that nice worn hammered metal look. Now to make the hand, or the white hand of Sauron, I just painted my hand while wearing a glove with some white acrylic paint. And I just painted that on with a brush. You could just stick your hand in the thing, it probably doesn't matter. And this is just a kind of a rough reference of where my hand is on the face. The only unfortunate thing is that I do not have like a 12-inch long hand, and so I ended up having to go through and redo this because the orc's hand are way larger and cover up a lot more of the helmet than my like 7-inch hand does. So I ended up having to freehand a lot of the hand because it goes down all the way to the nose area, and mine was just barely hitting the forehead. So if you end up making this, just try to get the hand shape larger. I ended up repainting this, but I didn't record that. And then I went through and brushed on that red, I assume it's blood that's on the corners of the helmet part, and I just brushed those on with some red acrylic paint. And then I went through and dabbed on some rust over all of the edges, and this is just to give it a nice worn look. Obviously I'm not going for like this screen used prop, I'm trying to make it my own, and I'm pretty pleased with how it turned out. I like kind of the rustic look that this has, and I feel that if the Uruk Hai had survived a little bit longer, their armor and stuff would be looking a lot more like this than it does in the movies. This thing is huge on me because I made it scale with the orcs in the movie, so yeah, it looks about as scale as I've seen any other props. All the black paint in this video was purchased by my Patreons, so thank you guys. And if you want to become one of those, just check out the link in the description. They definitely help pay for a lot of the paints and stuff that I use. So thank you, Matthew, for that. Be sure to like and subscribe, and let me know what stuff you guys want to make. This was, well, a Uruk Hai helmet was requested, and I ended up making this one because I wanted to be a little different. But definitely let me know what you guys want to make, and I'll try making it. See you guys next vid, and happy crafting. Bye.